I would think that by this time in history, my PlayStation 3 would be, modded, relatively set. There wouldn't be new updates coming out for the system, but in the beginning of June of 2021, Sony yet again released a title update for the PlayStation 3, bringing it to version 4.88. They released version 4.87 back in December of 2020, so they've definitely been keeping up. It seems like for some reason every 6 months with updating a console that came out like 15 years ago. And of course they're doing that to update the Blu-ray keys. So something with the Blu-ray player in particular is the reason why they're performing these updates. Now, if you're someone that's using a modded system, this is very tedious if you want to play online because you're not able to play online unless you have a current system update. Well, I've been using version 4.86 of Rebug. It was the last version of Rebug, which was a permanent custom firmware. You just turned the console on, you were on custom firmware right away. But the last version that they had made was 4.86. So when the 4.87 update came out in December of 2020, which of course was mostly just to update Blu-ray keys, I wasn't able to play online without using a different program called SEN Enabler to actually spoof the correct firmware and be able to play online. Now with 4.88, I guess I've read that there's some security flaws in terms of spoofing, and that spoofing isn't really as safe as it used to be, which it never really was particularly safe. I am worried about getting my PlayStation 3 banned, or my PSN account in particular banned, because I do have intentions to use my primary PSN account on a PlayStation 5 when I can get my hands on one of those. I do have games that I've purchased on there for the PlayStation 3 or claimed different PS4 games that were free in the past on that primary PSN account. Now, of course, I do have a dummy PSN account that I use as well that I made, within the last year. That account, however, cannot play games like Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3 online because the account isn't old enough, and that's a requirement for those few Call of Duty games that came out in that era. So in order to play those games, I have to use my older kind of main PSN account. So I'm trying to take different precautions, try and make sure my account doesn't get banned and my system doesn't get banned. And because of that, I've actually switched from using Rebug custom firmware, which is oftentimes considered the nicer one to use because like I said, it's there right when you turn it on. You can do mod menus, which I never did. You can play PS2 backups, which I used to do but got away from doing because I ended up just going to playing backups on the PlayStation 2 itself. So rather than spoofing directly using something like SEN Enabler, when it came to getting back online for 4.88, I actually updated to 4.88 HEN, which is a PlayStation 3 sort of soft mod you have to run every single time you turn on the system, which is something I usually want to avoid and get away from. But here's the truth about PS3 HEN and why it's primarily used by people who have a super slim console because they can't use actual CFW, but why I think everyone should actually consider using it rather than traditional CFW, which is not as commonly updated anymore, at least in the case of Rebug. I know EvilNat has a custom firmware that you can get permanently installed. You don't have to run every time, and I believe he updates his a little bit more frequently yet. But I think that PS3 HEN is the one that seems like it gets updated most frequently and the quickest, not to mention the fact that if your system is not yet modded, it's the easiest one to install. It's really just a matter of installing just the HFW firmware that you download from the internet, just put it on your flash drive, install like you'd install any other system update. And then it's as simple as going to a certain website on your PlayStation 3, ps3exploit.com, and then you can enable the homebrew, the HEN, the homebrew enabler HEN, and get it running that way so that you have the little button on your XMB, and every time when you turn on your system, you want to do something that would require you to have homebrew or to play backups, things like that, you have to enable HEN before you can actually do those things every time you turn on the console. Now in my case, I don't necessarily use homebrew every single time I turn on the console. Sure, I play backups sometimes. I play College Football Revamped, that requires HEN. But to play something like Battlefield 4 here online or Call of Duty Ghosts, I have the discs for these games, so I just simply need to turn on the system, put the disc in. I don't even bother enabling HEN for those because I don't need it, and it, in my opinion, should theoretically decrease my ban risk as well. Even on HEN, you can play package files. You want to install a game maybe only was released on the PlayStation Network, or a game that it's easier to install it via the PlayStation Network copy because that package file will actually show up in the XMB. You can install those package files still on PS3 HEN. You can still use Webman in order to actually play folder backups, ISO backups, which of course is necessary if you want to play College Football Revamped. all of those features, even the fan control speed, seem to still be accessible via PS3 HEN, and those are mostly the things that I want custom firmware for. I don't want custom firmware to be able to do mod menus on GTA 5. I think the people who are doing that are ruining the game for everybody else, and it's not something that I'm into. The people who are into that, you're going to have actual custom firmware, but I hate it. And while Sony obviously is not that concerned about hackers playing online on a console that's now 2 generations old, it does seem like every time one of these Blu-ray related updates comes out that changes the firmware number, and as a result makes it be a bit more difficult for people with actual custom firmware that are using mod menus to get online. Seems like every time Sony does this, it indirectly does kind of clean up the multiplayer lobbies, at least for a while, until those CFW users can get to spoofing themselves back online, because obviously if that's the case in those scenarios, that time period, only people who have actual official firmware PlayStation 3s, which I don't really recommend even using anymore, and people that are using PS3 HEN are the only people online until those spoofs can get up to date, or until EvilNat's new custom firmware comes out so the guys with the mod menus can get back online. So until then, these lobbies are always kind of clean. It's actually kind of a nice period, and I'm glad I'll get to participate in that more because I have PS3 HEN, and they update it so much more frequently, and the updates come out automatically every single time you launch the HEN enabler, which makes the process be overall just a ton more noob friendly. And that's why going forward on both my PlayStation 3s, I've said the heck with CFW. I'm going to PS3 HEN, which is not the direction a lot of people take with modding their consoles. But look, I just don't use those features that CFW requires, and I'm not interested in putting up with the hassle of waiting or worried about being banned that they oftentimes bring. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.